The CEO's words cut through the night like a blade. I would never have kids with a white man. But what Amara Holt didn't know was that someone was listening, someone whose heart would shatter with every syllable. Luke Dawson, the quiet janitor who had been secretly leaving her thoughtful repair notes for months, froze in that hallway as the woman he was falling for seemingly destroyed any chance they could ever have together. What started as a misunderstood phone call would spiral into a company-wide scandal, testing whether love could survive the poison of other people's words and the weight of their own fears. But sometimes the most devastating betrayals aren't betrayals at all. If you're watching this story unfold, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this love story will challenge everything you think you know about second chances. The mop squeezed against the floor with a soft, wet sound. Luke Dawson pushed it in steady lines down the 27th floor hallway. His shoulders moved in the same rhythm he'd done 1,000 times before. Clean the corners, check the windows, move to the next office. It was Monday night, almost 9 o'clock. The building was quiet except for the hum of air conditioning and the distant elevator music. Most people had gone home hours ago. Luke liked it this way. Peaceful, simple. No one watching him work or asking questions about why a 27-year-old man spent his nights cleaning offices. He didn't mind. This job fed him and his nephew Evan. That's what mattered. Luke rounded the corner toward the corner office. Light spilled from the open doorway. The CEO was still here. She worked late most nights. He'd seen her before, always busy, always moving fast. A black woman with kind eyes who said thank you when she didn't have to. Amara Holt. He'd heard people say her name in the elevators. She ran this whole company at 29. Luke couldn't imagine having that much weight on his shoulders. He slowed his pace as he got closer to her office. He tried to be quiet when people were working. The last thing anyone needed was the sound of a janitor bothering them, but her voice carried into the hallway. She was on the phone. "Mom, I told you what she said." Amara's voice was tired. She looked me right in the face and said, "I would never have kids with a white man." Just like that. Like I was some kind of disappointment. Luke froze. His hands tightened on the mop handle. "I know you think I should forget it," Amara continued, "but I keep hearing her voice. I would never have kids with a white man. It's been 2 years and I still hear it." The words hit Luke like cold water. He stood there in the hallway, not knowing if he should move or stay. His chest felt tight. "No, Mom, I'm not saying I believe it. I'm just telling you what she said to me, what David's mother said to me." Amara's voice cracked a little. "Sometimes I wonder if she was right, though. Maybe it would be easier to—" Luke took a step back. His shoe squeaked on the wet floor. The voice on the phone stopped. He looked up to see Amara standing in her doorway. Her dark eyes met his. For a moment, neither of them moved. "Mom, I have to go," she said softly into the phone. She hung up. Luke felt heat rise in his face. His hands were shaking. He wanted to say something. Anything. But what could he say? That he'd heard her talking about never having kids with someone who looked like him. That the words made him feel small and stupid for ever thinking she seemed nice. "I'm sorry," Amara said. "I didn't know anyone was—" "It's fine," Luke said quickly. His voice came out flat, professional. "Just finishing the hall." He started mopping again. Fast, efficient strokes. He kept his eyes down. "Luke, it's fine," he said again. He could feel her watching him. He'd always been good at reading people, and right now he could tell she wanted to explain something. But what was there to explain? He'd heard what he'd heard. Luke finished the section of floor near her office in half the time it usually took. When he looked up, Amara was still standing there. She had that look people got when they wanted to fix something but didn't know how. "Thank you," she said as he moved his cart past her office. "You're welcome," he replied. The words came out colder than he meant them to. As he worked his way down the rest of the hallway, Luke noticed something taped to her window frame. Small pieces of paper in neat handwriting, his handwriting. Earlier that day, he'd left notes about a loose window latch that needed fixing. He'd done little repairs like that around the building for months. Gus, his supervisor, said it showed initiative. Now those notes felt different, like proof that he'd been paying attention to her office, like maybe he'd been hoping for more than just a polite thank you when she passed him in the halls. Luke shook his head. He was being stupid. She was the CEO. He was the night janitor. She lived in a world of board meetings and business suits. He lived in a world of cleaning supplies and late shifts. Of course, she wouldn't think about him that way, but her words still stung. By the time Luke reached the elevator lobby, it was almost 10 o'clock. He pressed the button and waited. The soft ding echoed in the empty space. Behind him, he heard footsteps. He didn't turn around, but he could smell her perfume, something light and clean. "Luke," Amara's voice was quiet. The elevator doors opened. Luke stepped inside and pressed the button for the basement level where he kept his cart. For a second, their eyes met in the reflection of the closing doors. "That's not what I meant," she whispered. But the doors had already closed. 10 minutes later, Luke was in the service corridor loading his cart when the alarm started beeping. A sharp, electronic sound that meant water where it shouldn't be. He grabbed his wet vacuum and a bucket of towels. Water damage was serious business in a building like this. Computers, important papers, expensive furniture, all of it could be ruined in minutes. The alarm was coming from the 20th floor. Luke took the service elevator up, his mind still turning over what had happened earlier. He tried to push Amara's words out of his head, but they kept playing on repeat. When the elevator opened, he could see the problem right away. Water was seeping out from under the door of a supply closet, not a flood, but enough to make the sensors panic. Luke rushed over with his equipment. A pipe had come loose behind the wall. Nothing major, but it needed to be stopped before it got worse. He was on his knees, working to contain the spill, when he heard footsteps behind him. "Oh no," a familiar voice said. "How bad is it?" Luke looked over his shoulder. Amara stood there holding a stack of clean towels from the break room. She'd changed out of her business jacket. Her white blouse had dark spots where water had splashed on it. "Not too bad," Luke said. His voice was still careful, professional. "Just a loose fitting. I can have it fixed in 20 minutes. Amara knelt down next to him and started laying out towels. "Tell me what to do," Luke blinked. "You don't have to." "I want to help." She looked at him directly. "Please." They worked together in silence for a few minutes. Amara held the vacuum hose while Luke tightened the loose pipe. She handed him tools when he needed them. Her movements were careful and precise, the same way she probably handled everything else in her life. "There," Luke said finally. "That should hold until maintenance can do a proper fix tomorrow." They both sat back on their heels. The corridor was quiet again, except for the hum of the building's ventilation system. "Luke," Amara said, "about what you heard earlier." "You don't have to explain anything to me," Luke said quickly. "Yes, I do." Her voice was firm. "What you heard, I wasn't saying what I believe. I was repeating what someone else said to me, someone who hurt me very badly." Luke kept his eyes on the wet towels. "Okay." "My ex-boyfriend's mother," Amara continued, 2 years ago. "She said those words to me. She said them to hurt me, and they worked. I've been carrying them around ever since." Luke finally looked at her. Her face was open, honest, tired. "I wasn't saying I believed it," she said. "I was telling my mom about why it still bothers me, why I let it get in my head." Luke nodded slowly. The tight feeling in his chest started to ease. "I'm sorry someone said that to you. And I'm sorry you had to hear it." Amara's voice was soft, especially without the context. They looked at each other for a moment. Luke could see the truth in her eyes. She wasn't the kind of person who would say cruel things about people. He'd been right about that from the beginning. "We should get this cleaned up," Luke said. They worked together to gather the wet towels and reset the alarm. As they finished, Luke noticed the easy way they moved around each other. No awkwardness, no stepping on toes, like they'd done this before. Just as they were packing up the last of the equipment, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Gus Alvarez appeared around the corner. Luke's supervisor was a short, stocky man with kind eyes and graying hair. He'd been working in this building for 15 years. "Everything under control?" Gus asked, looking between Luke and Amara. "All fixed," Luke said. "Just a loose fitting." Gus nodded, but Luke could see him taking in the scene. His boss was good at reading people, and right now he was clearly picking up on some kind of tension. "Ms. Holt, you didn't need to stay late for this," Gus said politely. "I wanted to help," Amara replied. "Luke had it handled, but I learned a lot about pipe fittings." Gus smiled at that. "Luke's good at fixing things. Been telling him he should think about moving up to maintenance full-time." Luke felt his face get warm. He liked his current job. It was steady, quiet, and gave him the schedule he needed to take care of Evan. But he also knew Gus meant well. "I'm happy where I am," Luke said. "Course you are," Gus replied. "Well, I'll let you two finish up. Ms. Holt, you have a good evening." After Gus left, Luke and Amara made their way to the break room to wash their hands. The small space felt different with both of them in it, more crowded, but not in a bad way. "Can I ask you something?" Amara said as she dried her hands. "Sure. Those repair notes you leave on my window frame. How long have you been doing that?" Luke shrugged. "Few months. I notice things when I'm working. Figured you'd want to know if something needed fixing." "I do want to know." Amara smiled. "It's thoughtful." Luke didn't know what to say to that. Most people didn't notice the small things he did around the building. They just expected everything to work. Amara opened one of the cabinets and pulled out 2 paper cups. She filled them with coffee from the pot that was always brewing in the break room. The coffee was terrible. Everyone knew that. But it was hot and it had caffeine. She handed 1 cup to Luke. "Peace offering." Luke took the cup. The coffee was as bad as always, but drinking it felt like something, a gesture, a way of saying they were okay. "Thanks," he said. Amara smiled. "Thank you for fixing the pipe and for listening." Luke nodded. They stood there for a moment, drinking terrible coffee in the fluorescent light of the break room. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't fancy. But it felt real. "I should get back to work," Luke said finally. "Of course." Amara rinsed her cup in the small sink. "Have a good rest of your shift." Luke finished his coffee and threw away the cup. As he gathered his cleaning supplies to leave, he felt something shift between them. Not everything was fixed. Trust took time. But the sharp hurt from earlier was gone. Walking back to his cart, Luke realized he was looking forward to tomorrow night. The next morning, Luke's alarm went off at 7:30. He'd gotten home from work at midnight, checked on Evan, and fallen into bed. 5.5 hours of sleep wasn't enough, but it was what he had. Evan was already awake, sitting at the small kitchen table with a bowl of cereal and a library book about airplanes. At 6 years old, he was quiet and serious, the kind of kid who preferred reading to talking. Luke understood that. He'd been the same way at that age. "Morning, buddy," Luke said, ruffling Evan's dark hair. "Sleep okay?" Evan nodded, pointing to a picture in his book. "This plane can go faster than sound." "That's pretty fast," Luke agreed, starting the coffee maker. "You ready for school?" Another nod. Evan finished his cereal and put his bowl in the sink without being asked. He was a good kid. Easy. Luke thanked God for that every day. While Evan brushed his teeth, Luke packed lunches and checked that homework was in the right backpack pocket. These morning routines had become second nature over the past 18 months, ever since Evan came to live with him after the accident. Luke tried not to think about that day too often. His sister Maria's car sliding on black ice, the hospital calls, the social worker asking if he could take temporary custody while Maria recovered. Temporary had become permanent when Maria didn't wake up. Now, Luke was all Evan had. A 27-year-old guy who worked nights cleaning offices and spent days trying to figure out how to raise a kid who'd lost his mom. Most of the time, Luke felt like he was barely keeping up. But Evan was doing okay. His grades were good. He had a few friends at school. He smiled sometimes, especially when they built paper airplanes together on weekends. That was enough. It had to be. Luke dropped Evan off at school and drove home to sleep for a few hours before his shift. But sleep didn't come easy. He kept thinking about the night before, about Amara's voice when she explained what really happened, about the way she'd knelt down to help with the water leak without worrying about her nice clothes, about the fact that she'd noticed his repair notes. Luke had left notes like that for months, always signed with just his initials. He told himself it was part of being thorough at his job, but if he was being honest, he'd hoped she might notice, might realize that someone was paying attention to the small details that made her work life easier. When he finally fell asleep, Luke dreamed about coffee in paper cups and the sound of Amara's laugh. Tuesday evening came faster than usual. Luke found himself looking forward to work in a way he hadn't in a long time. He told himself it was just because he enjoyed the quiet hours and the satisfaction of leaving everything clean. It had nothing to do with hoping he might run into the Wade, CEO again. But when Luke arrived at the building at 8:30, he made sure to check the 27th floor first. Amara's office was dark. Luke felt a small stab of disappointment, then immediately felt stupid for caring. He started his usual routine on the 15th floor and worked his way up. The building was quiet, just him and the security guard downstairs and maybe a few people working late in the lower floors. By 10 o'clock, Luke had made it to the 25th floor. 2 more to go. As he stepped off the elevator, he could hear voices coming from one of the conference rooms. A late meeting, probably. Luke tried to be extra quiet as he worked around the occupied areas. He was just finishing the east corridor when he heard his name. "Luke?" Amara's voice came from behind him. "Do you have a minute?" Luke turned around. She was standing in the doorway of the conference room, holding a thick folder and looking tired. But she was smiling. "Sure," Luke said. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I just wanted to give you something." She walked over to where he was standing by his cart. "I noticed you've been fixing small things around the building for months. That loose door handle on the 19th floor, the squeaky hinge in the south stairwell, the window latch in my office." Luke nodded. He did those things in his spare time, usually during his lunch break. Gus knew about it and didn't mind as long as it didn't interfere with his regular duties. "I put in a request for maintenance to give you a bonus," Amara said, "for all the extra work you do." Luke blinked. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." She handed him a small bag. "And I got you this, to replace those terrible paper towels you use for the windows." Luke looked in the bag. It was full of microfiber cloths, the good kind that didn't leave streaks. They probably cost more than he spent on groceries in a week. "Thank you," he said, "but this is too much." "It's not too much. It's what you deserve for doing good work." Amara's voice was firm. "I notice things too, Luke. I notice when people care about their job, when they go above and beyond." Luke felt something warm settle in his chest. When was the last time someone had thanked him like this? Really thanked him, not just the polite words people said when they passed him in the halls. "I appreciate it," he said, "really." "Good," Amara smiled. "How's your nephew? Evan, right?" Luke was surprised she remembered the name. He'd only mentioned Evan briefly the night before. "He's good. Really into airplanes right now." "That's a good age for being excited about everything," Amara said. "What's his favorite kind?" "Fighter jets. The faster the better." Luke found himself smiling. "He wants to be a pilot when he grows up." "Smart kid." Amara shifted the folder in her arms. "It must be a lot raising him on your own." Luke nodded. "Some days are harder than others, but he's a good kid. Makes it easier." "I'm sure he's lucky to have you," Amara said softly. They stood there for a moment in the quiet hallway. Luke felt that same sense of ease from the night before, like he could talk to her about real things, like she actually wanted to hear his answers. "I should let you get back to work," Amara said finally. "But Luke, thank you again for last night, for listening, for not making assumptions." "Thank you for explaining," Luke replied, "and for these." He held up the bag of cleaning cloths. Amara smiled. "Good night, Luke." "Good night." Luke watched her walk back toward the elevators. As the doors closed, he realized he was still smiling. He spent the rest of his shift thinking about their conversation, about the fact that she'd remembered Evan's name, about how she'd said she noticed things too. When Luke got home that night, he put the new cleaning cloths in his work bag. Then he sat at the kitchen table and thought about tomorrow. For the first time in a long time, tomorrow felt like it might bring something good. Wednesday started like any other day. Luke got Evan ready for school, dropped him off, and tried to catch a few hours of sleep. But his mind was restless. He kept thinking about his conversation with Amara the night before, about the way she'd looked at him when she said she noticed things too. Luke had been hurt before, not often, but enough to know the signs. The way someone could make you feel special and then disappear. The way kindness could turn into pity when people found out about his life. About Evan. About the fact that he was 27 and working a job most people his age wouldn't consider. But Amara hadn't looked at him with pity. She'd looked at him like he was worth noticing. That afternoon, Luke picked up Evan from school and took him to the library. While Evan read picture books about airplanes, Luke found himself staring out the window and wondering what Amara was doing right now, probably in meetings, probably making important decisions that affected dozens of people. Luke shook his head. He was getting ahead of himself. One friendly conversation didn't mean anything. She was being nice because he'd helped with the water leak. That was all. But when evening came, Luke found himself looking forward to work again. He arrived at the building at his usual time and started his routine. But tonight, something felt different. There was an energy in the air, like the building itself was holding its breath. Luke was working on the 19th floor when his phone buzzed with a text from Gus. "Check the sensor on 19, red light again." Luke looked around and spotted the small environmental sensor mounted near the ceiling. Sure enough, a red light was blinking steadily. It probably meant the air filtration system was having trouble again. Nothing dangerous, but it needed to be reset. Luke was standing on a stepladder, checking the sensor connections, when he heard footsteps behind him. "Need help with that?" Luke looked down to see Amara standing at the bottom of the ladder. She was wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual business clothes. She looked younger, more relaxed. "I think I've got it," Luke said. "Just a loose wire." "Good thing you're here," Amara said. "I was just heading home when I saw the alert on my phone. Building management system sends notifications to all the department heads." Luke climbed down from the ladder. The sensor light had switched from red to green. "Should be good now." "Thank you." Amara smiled. "You really do fix everything around here, don't you?" Luke felt his face get warm. "Just doing my job." "You do a lot more than your job," Amara said. "I've been thinking about that." They started walking down the hallway together. Luke wasn't sure where they were going, but it felt natural to fall into step beside her. "Can I ask you something?" Amara said. "Sure." "How did you end up here? I mean, what brought you to this job?" Luke considered how to answer. Most people didn't really want the whole story. They wanted something simple and easy to understand. "I needed work that paid well and had good health insurance," he said finally. "When my nephew came to live with me, I had to think about stability." Amara nodded. "That makes sense. How long have you been taking care of him?" "About 1.5 years," Luke said. "His mom, my sister, was in an accident. She didn't make it." "Oh, Luke." Amara stopped walking. "I'm so sorry." Luke had gotten used to that look, the sudden sadness people got when they realized he was dealing with something tragic. But Amara's expression was different. It wasn't pity, it was understanding. "It's been hard," Luke admitted, "but Evan's doing okay, that's what matters." "You're doing something incredible," Amara said. "Raising a child on your own, working nights to support him, that takes real strength." Luke looked at her. Most people either praised him like he was some kind of hero or acted like he was in over his head. Amara did neither. She just saw what was true. "Some days I feel like I'm barely keeping up," he said. "I think that's how most people feel when they're doing something important," Amara replied. "I feel that way about running the company sometimes." They had reached the elevator lobby. Luke pressed the call button, even though he wasn't sure which floor they were going to. "Can I ask you something now?" Luke said. "Of course. What's it like? Being in charge of all this?" Luke gestured around them. "Do you ever feel scared?" Amara was quiet for a moment. "Every day," she said finally. "I'm 29 years old, and I'm responsible for the livelihoods of 200 people. Some days I wake up and think, what if I make the wrong decision? What if I let everyone down?" The elevator arrived and they stepped inside. Luke pressed the button for the basement level where he kept his cart. "But then I remember why I'm doing it," Amara continued. "This company was my father's. He died when I was in college, and I promised myself I'd make it something he'd be proud of." "I bet he would be proud," Luke said. Amara smiled. "Thank you for saying that." The elevator dinged at the basement level. Luke hesitated before stepping out. "Would you like to see something?" he asked suddenly. Amara looked surprised but curious. "Sure." Luke led her down a short hallway to a storage room he'd set up as a break area. It wasn't much, just a table, a coffee maker, and a small refrigerator. But he'd made it comfortable. Clean. "This is where I take my lunch break," Luke said. "It's quiet down here." Amara looked around the small space. "You did all this?" Luke nodded. "Gus said I could use the room. I just added a few things." "It's nice," Amara said. "Peaceful." She sat down at the small table. Luke hesitated, then sat across from her. The coffee maker gurgled in the corner. "Luke," Amara said, "can I tell you something?" "Sure." "I don't have many friends," she said quietly. "Not real ones. Most people want something from me. Business connections, favors, introductions. It's hard to know when someone actually likes you for who you are." Luke understood that feeling. When people found out about his situation with Evan, they either treated him like a charity case or they disappeared entirely. "I think I know what you mean," he said. "Do you?" Amara looked at him directly. "Because I was thinking about our conversation last night, and I realized something. You don't want anything from me. You just talk to me like I'm a person. Do you know how rare that is?" Luke felt something shift in his chest, a warm, uncertain feeling that he hadn't experienced in a long time. "You're a person," he said simply. Amara smiled. "See? That's what I mean." The coffee maker finished brewing with a final gurgle. Luke got up and poured 2 cups, adding sugar to both because the coffee was terrible without it. "Luke," Amara said as he handed her a cup, "would you like to have dinner with me sometime? Not here in the building, somewhere real?" Luke's heart started beating faster. "Are you asking me on a date?" "I'm asking you to dinner," Amara said. "We can figure out what it is while we're there." Luke looked at her across the small table. Her dark eyes were hopeful but nervous. She was taking a risk by asking. He could see that. "I'd like that," he said. "Really?" "Really?" Luke smiled. "But you should know I'm not very exciting. I work nights, I take care of a 6-year-old, and I know more about cleaning supplies than any person should." Amara laughed. "That sounds perfect to me." They sat there smiling at each other across the small table. The basement storage room suddenly felt like the most important place in the world. "So," Luke said, "where would you like to go?" "Somewhere quiet," Amara said. "Somewhere we can actually talk." Luke thought about it. He knew. All the quiet places in the neighborhood from his late-night walks with Evan when the kid couldn't sleep. "There's a diner a few blocks from here," he said. "Mrs. Patel's. It's nothing fancy, but the food is good and it's never crowded on weeknights." "Mrs. Patel's sounds perfect," Amara said. They made plans for Friday night. Luke would finish his shift early, and Amara would meet him there at 7. As they talked, Luke felt himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in months, maybe years. When it was time for Luke to get back to work, they rode the elevator up together. As the doors opened on the 27th floor, Amara turned to him. "Luke?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for saying yes. I wasn't sure you would." "Thank you for asking," Luke said. "I wasn't sure anyone ever would." Amara smiled and stepped out of the elevator. As the doors closed, Luke caught a glimpse of her walking down the hallway toward her office. For the first time since Maria died, Luke allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, something good was about to happen. Friday evening couldn't come fast enough. Luke found himself checking the clock every hour at work, counting down until he could leave early to meet Amara. He'd asked Gus if he could cut his shift short, and his supervisor had just smiled and said, "About time you had some fun." Luke wasn't sure if this counted as fun. It felt more important than that, more nerve-wracking. He'd never been good at dating. In high school, he'd been too shy. In his early 20s, he'd been too focused on work and helping his sister with Evan when she needed a babysitter. And after Maria died, Luke had been too busy learning how to be a guardian to think about romance. But something about Amara made him want to try. Luke left the building at 6:30 and walked the 4 blocks to Mrs. Patel's diner. The evening air was cool, with the first hint of fall coming. He'd changed into his best jeans and a button-down shirt that didn't have any stains from cleaning supplies. Mrs. Patel's was exactly what Luke had promised: quiet, comfortable, and filled with the smell of good food. The owner, an elderly Indian woman with kind eyes, had been running the place for 20 years. Luke came here sometimes after late shifts when he was too wound up to go straight home. "Luke!" Mrs. Patel called from behind the counter as he walked in. "You're early tonight. The usual?" "Actually, I'm meeting someone," Luke said, feeling his face get warm. "Could I get a table for 2? Mrs. Patel's eyebrows rose with interest, but she just smiled and led him to a booth by the window. "She must be special," she said quietly. "Yeah," Luke said. "I think she is." Luke was checking his phone for the 3rd time when the door chimed. Amara walked in, looking around until she spotted him. She was wearing a simple green dress and a denim jacket, her hair loose around her shoulders. Luke had only ever seen her in business clothes before. This version of her looked softer, more real. "Hi," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Hi." Luke felt himself smiling. "You found it okay?" Google Maps is a wonderful thing. Amara looked around the diner. "This is perfect. Exactly what I needed after this week." Mrs. Patel appeared at their table with 2 glasses of water and menus. "Welcome," she said to Amara. "Any friend of Luke's is family here." "Thank you," Amara said warmly. "Luke tells me you have the best comfort food in the city." "He's not wrong," Mrs. Patel replied with a wink before leaving them to look at the menus. "So," Amara said, opening her menu, "what's good here?" "Everything," Luke said. "But the meatloaf is amazing, and the apple pie is worth saving room for." "Meatloaf it is." Amara closed her menu. "I can't remember the last time I had real comfort food. Most of my meals come from the sandwich place downstairs, or whatever catering they bring to board meetings." "That sounds awful," Luke said. "It is awful." Amara laughed. "I used to love cooking. In college, I'd make huge meals for my roommates every Sunday, but now I barely have time to microwave leftovers." Luke tried to imagine Amara in a college kitchen, laughing with friends while she stirred something on the stove. It was a nice picture. "What do you like to cook?" he asked. "My grandmother's recipes mostly. She taught me how to make the best cornbread in Georgia, and this amazing chicken and dumplings that takes all day but is worth every minute." "That sounds incredible," Luke said. "Evan and I pretty much live on spaghetti and sandwiches. I'm not much of a cook." "I could teach you sometime," Amara said. Then she looked surprised, like the words had slipped out without permission. "I mean, if you want. No pressure." "I'd like that," Luke said quickly. "Evan would love to learn too. He's always interested in how things work." Mrs. Patel came back to take their orders, meatloaf for both of them, with mashed potatoes and green beans, sweet tea for Amara, coffee for Luke. "Tell me about Evan," Amara said after Mrs. Patel left. "What's he like?" Luke felt the familiar warm feeling he always got when people asked about his nephew. "He's quiet, really smart. He thinks about everything before he says it. Sometimes I think he's more mature than I am." "That happens when kids go through something hard," Amara said gently. "They grow up faster than they should have to." Luke nodded. "He still has nightmares sometimes about the accident, but he's doing better. His teacher says he's one of the best readers in his class." "You should be proud," Amara said. "Both of you. It can't be easy, but it sounds like you're doing an amazing job." Luke felt something tight in his chest loosen. Most people either acted like raising Evan was no big deal or like it was some kind of tragedy. Amara understood that it was both hard and good. Complicated. "What about you?" Luke asked. "Do you want kids or someday?" The question seemed to catch Amara off guard. She was quiet for a moment, stirring her sweet tea with her straw. "I used to think I did," she said finally. "But now I'm not sure. Running the company takes everything I have. I work 60 hours a week. I barely have time for myself, let alone a family." "That doesn't mean you couldn't have both," Luke said. "Maybe." Amara looked out the window at the street. "I guess I've never met anyone who made me want to try to balance it all. Does that make sense?" Luke nodded. "It makes sense. I never thought about dating after Evan came to live with me. Didn't seem fair to him or to anyone else, but..." "But?" Amara looked back at him. "But sitting here with you makes me think maybe I was wrong about that." Their eyes met across the table. Luke felt that same warm certainty he'd felt in the basement break room. This was right. Whatever this was between them, it felt right. Mrs. Patel arrived with their food, breaking the moment but not the feeling. They ate and talked about small things. Amara's favorite movies, she loved old romantic comedies. Luke's worst cleaning disasters, involving a vacuum cleaner and a very angry cat. Their conversation flowed easy and natural, like they had been doing this for months. "Luke," Amara said as they finished their meatloaf, "can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Do you ever feel lonely? Taking care of Evan, working nights. It must be isolating sometimes." Luke considered the question. "Yeah," he said finally. "Sometimes I do, especially late at night when Evan's asleep and the building is empty. But I've gotten used to it. Lonely is better than letting him down." "You're not going to let him down," Amara said firmly. "Anyone can see how much you love him." How can you tell? The way your whole face changes when you talk about him, the way you've built your whole life around making sure he's okay, that's not something someone does halfway. Luke felt his throat get tight. Thank you for saying that. Some days I worry I'm not enough for him. You are enough, Amara said. More than enough. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Outside, the sun was starting to set, casting everything in golden light. What about you? Luke asked. Do you get lonely? Every day, Amara said without hesitation. I'm surrounded by people all the time, but most of them want something from me. It's rare to find someone who just wants to know who I am. Who are you? Luke asked. When you're not being the CEO, when it's just you. Amara smiled. I'm someone who talks to her plants. I'm someone who cries at dog videos on social media. I'm someone who still calls her mom every Sunday, even though we argue about everything. I'm someone who's scared she's turning into a workaholic like her father was. Luke liked this version of Amara, the real one, without the business suit armor. Your father was a workaholic, he asked. Completely. He built the company from nothing, but he missed most of my childhood doing it. I swore I wouldn't be like that, but Amara shrugged. Here I am, eating dinner at 8 o'clock on a Friday night because this is the first free evening I've had in weeks. What would you do if you had more free time? Luke asked. I'd read more. Real books, not just business reports. I'd take cooking classes, maybe learn to paint. Amara's eyes lit up. I'd travel somewhere warm and sit on a beach for a whole week without checking my email. That sounds perfect, Luke said. What about you? If you could do anything. Luke thought about it. I'd take Evan to see the ocean. He's never been. And I'd learn how to build things with my hands. Real things, not just fix broken pipes, maybe furniture or birdhouses. You could do that? Amara said. There are classes at the community center. When? Luke laughed. Between work and Evan's school schedule, I barely have time to do laundry. Fair point, Amara smiled. But maybe someday. Mrs. Patel brought them apple pie without being asked. On the house, she said with a wink. For the new couple? Luke felt his face get warm, but Amara just thanked her gracefully. They shared the pie, which was as good as Luke had promised. This was exactly what I needed, Amara said as they finished dessert. Thank you for suggesting this place. Thank you for asking me, Luke said. I haven't had a night like this in I can't remember how long. Me either. Amara checked her phone. It's almost 9. I should probably let you get home to Evan. Luke had asked his neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, to check on Evan. The 6-year-old was probably asleep by now, but Luke didn't want to be out too late. They split the check despite Luke's protests. Outside the diner, they stood on the sidewalk not quite ready to say goodbye. Luke, Amara said, I had a really good time tonight. So did I. Would you like to do this again sometime? Luke smiled. I'd love to. Good. Amara looked like she was going to say something else, but then she just smiled. I'll see you at work on Monday. See you Monday. Luke watched her walk to her car, a small silver sedan parked across the street. She waved before driving away, and Luke stood there on the sidewalk, feeling like something important had just happened. On the walk home, Luke replayed the entire evening in his head. The way Amara had laughed at his stories, the way she'd talked about her dreams with such hope in her voice, the way she'd looked at him like he was worth knowing. When Luke got home, Mrs. Rodriguez was watching TV on his couch. How was your date? She asked with a knowing smile. It was good, Luke said. Really good. She must be special. You're glowing. Luke felt his face get warm. Is Evan okay? Perfect angel. Finished his homework, ate his dinner, went to bed at 8:30 like always. Mrs. Rodriguez gathered her purse. Luke, honey, it's about time. You had some happiness. Don't you dare feel guilty about it. After she left, Luke checked on Evan. The boy was fast asleep, one arm wrapped around his stuffed airplane. Luke pulled the blankets up to his chin and kissed his forehead. Good night, buddy, he whispered. In his own room, Luke lay in bed staring at the ceiling. For the first time in 18 months, he let himself imagine what it might be like to share his life with someone. Not just the responsibility and the worry, but the good parts too. The small moments that made everything worthwhile. He fell asleep thinking about Amara's laugh. Saturday morning came too early. Evan was up at 7, ready to go to the park as they did every weekend. Luke made pancakes and coffee, listening to his nephew read facts about airplanes from his library book. "Did you know some planes can fly higher than clouds?" Evan asked, syrup on his chin. "That's pretty high," Luke agreed. "Maybe we'll see one today at the park." They spent the morning at the small neighborhood park 3 blocks from their apartment. Evan played on the swings while Luke sat on a bench, reading the newspaper and trying not to think about Amara every 5 minutes. He was mostly failing at that. "Uncle Luke," Evan called from the top of the slide. "Look how high I am." "I see you, buddy. That's really high." Evan slid down and ran back to the ladder. He'd been more talkative lately, more willing to play and explore. Luke knew it was a good sign. For a long time after the accident, Evan had been quiet and clingy, afraid to let Luke out of his sight. Now, he was acting more like a regular 6-year-old. It made Luke's heart feel full. "Uncle Luke," Evan appeared at his elbow, out of breath from playing. "What's up?" "Can we get ice cream?" Luke checked his watch. It was almost noon. "Sure, but lunch first." They walked to the small grocery store on the corner to buy sandwich supplies. Luke was pushing the cart down the bread aisle when his phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Amara. "Good morning. Hope you and Evan are having a nice Saturday. Thank you again for last night." Luke felt himself smile as he typed back. "Morning. We're at the store getting lunch supplies. Thank you for dinner. I had a great time." Amara replied quickly. "What are you making for lunch?" "Peanut butter and jelly. I told you I wasn't much of a cook." "Ha, that's a classic. Evan probably loves it." Luke was about to type a response when Evan tugged on his jacket sleeve. "Who are you texting?" the boy asked. "A friend from work," Luke said, putting his phone away. "Come on, let's pick out some fruit." They finished shopping and walked home. While Evan ate his sandwich and watched cartoons, Luke found himself thinking about Amara's text. It was nice to know she was thinking about him too. That evening, after Evan was asleep, Luke's phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something made him answer it. "Luke?" A woman's voice he didn't recognize. "Yeah? This is Jenna. Jenna Morrison. We dated a couple of years ago." Luke's stomach dropped. Jenna. He hadn't heard from her since they broke up. The relationship had lasted 6 months and ended badly when she decided she didn't want to deal with Luke's baggage, meaning Evan. "Jenna," Luke said carefully, "what's up?" "I've been thinking about you lately," she said. "About us. I think I made a mistake when we broke up." Luke closed his eyes. This was the last thing he needed right now. "Jenna, that was 2 years ago." "I know, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. I was young and scared. I didn't understand what you were going through with your nephew, but I'm older now, more mature." "I'm glad you're doing well," Luke said. "But I saw you at the grocery store today," Jenna interrupted. "You looked happy. Evan looked happy. It made me realize what I gave up." Luke felt a chill run down his spine. She'd been watching him? "Jenna, I don't think... Just think about it, okay? We were good together. We could be good again." "I have to go," Luke said firmly. "Good night, Jenna." He hung up and immediately blocked the number. The last thing he needed was his ex-girlfriend complicating things just when his life was starting to feel hopeful again. Luke tried to push the conversation out of his mind, but it stayed with him for the rest of the weekend. Sunday passed quietly. Church with Mrs. Rodriguez and Evan, lunch at home, an afternoon walk to feed the ducks at the pond. But Luke couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that the peaceful life he'd built for himself and Evan was about to get more complicated. Monday night at work felt different. Luke found himself looking forward to seeing Amara, but also feeling nervous about it. The conversation with Jenna had left him unsettled. It reminded him of all the reasons he'd avoided dating since becoming Evan's guardian. Luke was cleaning the 15th floor when he saw her. Amara was coming out of the elevator, talking on her phone. She looked tired, like it had been a long day. When she saw Luke, her whole face lit up. She said something quick into the phone and hung up. "Hi," she said, walking over to where he was mopping near the water fountains. "Hi." Luke felt himself smiling despite his nervous mood. "Long day?" "The longest. 3 meetings, 2 conference calls, and a contract negotiation that went nowhere." Amara rubbed her temples. "How was your weekend?" "Good. Quiet. Evan and I went to the park." Luke hesitated, then decided to be honest. "Actually, something weird happened. My ex-girlfriend called me." Amara's expression changed slightly. Oh, it was nothing, Luke said quickly. We broke up 2 years ago. I don't know why she called. I hung up. Are you okay? Amara's voice was gentle. You look upset. Luke considered lying, saying he was fine. But something about Amara's expression made him want to tell the truth. She broke up with me because of Evan, he said. Because I became his guardian. She said she didn't sign up for an instant family. So it was weird hearing from her now. Amara's face hardened. She said that? Yeah, I get it. Dating someone with a kid is complicated. But Evan isn't going anywhere. He's my family now. Anyone who would reject a child is not someone you want in your life, Amara said firmly. Evan is lucky to have you. Any woman would be lucky to have both of you. Luke felt that warm feeling in his chest again, the one that happened whenever Amara understood something important without him having to explain it. Thank you for saying that. I mean it, Amara stepped closer. Luke, I hope you know that your situation with Evan doesn't scare me. If anything, it makes me respect you more. Luke looked into her dark eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. It doesn't bother you that my life is complicated. Everyone's life is complicated, Amara said. The question is whether the complications are worth it, whether the person is worth it. And am I? Luke asked quietly. I think so, Amara said. I really think so. They stood there in the empty hallway, looking at each other. Luke felt like he was standing at the edge of something important, something that could change everything. Amara, he started to say, but before he could finish the thought, they heard footsteps echoing down the corridor. Someone was coming. Luke stepped back and picked up his mop. Amara smoothed her hair and tried to look professional. A security guard appeared around the corner. Evening, Ms. Holt. Luke, everything okay up here? Everything's fine, Ralph, Amara said smoothly. I was just asking Luke about the air conditioning in my office. It's been making a strange noise. I'll check it tomorrow, Luke said, playing along. Ralph nodded and continued his rounds. After he was gone, Luke and Amara looked at each other and started laughing. That was close, Amara said. Yeah. Luke felt his heart still beating fast. Are we being stupid, meeting like this at work? Probably, Amara admitted, but I like talking to you. It's the best part of my day. Luke felt his resolve weakening. Mine too. There's something I want to show you, Amara said, if you have time. Luke checked his watch. He was ahead of schedule tonight. Sure. Amara led him to the service elevator and pressed the button for the roof. Luke had been up there before to check the HVAC units, but never at night. The roof was beautiful in the darkness. The city spread out below them, lights twinkling like stars. The air was cool and clean, with just a hint of autumn coming. I come up here sometimes when I need to think, Amara said, walking to the edge of the roof where there was a low wall. It reminds me that the world is bigger than whatever crisis is happening in the office. Luke joined her at the wall. The view was incredible. I can see why you like it up here. My dad used to bring me up here when I was little, Amara said. Back when the company was smaller and he had more time, he'd point out all the different neighborhoods and tell me stories about the people who lived there. That sounds nice. It was. Those are some of my best memories of him. Amara was quiet for a moment. After he died, I stopped coming up here for a long time. It made me too sad. What changed? I realized that avoiding the sadness meant I was avoiding the good memories too. Amara looked at him. Sometimes the things that hurt us also hold the best parts of our lives. Luke thought about that, about Maria and Evan and the complicated mix of grief and love that came with raising his nephew. That makes sense, he said. They stood in comfortable silence, looking out over the city. Luke could smell Amara's perfume, light and sweet. He could hear her breathing, soft and steady. Luke, she said quietly, I'm really glad we met. Even though it started with you saying something that hurt my feelings, especially because of that. Amara turned to face him. It forced us to be honest with each other from the beginning. No games, no pretending to be someone we're not. Luke looked at her in the moonlight. Her face was soft and open, more beautiful than he'd ever seen her. I want to kiss you, he said, the words coming out before he could stop them. I want you to, Amara replied. Luke reached up and touched her face, his thumb brushing across her cheek. She closed her eyes and leaned into his touch. When he kissed her, it was gentle and slow. No rush, no desperation, just the sweet certainty that this was right, that this was what he'd been waiting for without knowing it. When they broke apart, Luke rested his forehead against hers. "Oh, wow," Amara whispered. "Yeah," Luke agreed. "Wow." They held each other in the quiet night, the city spread out below them like a promise. For the first time in 2 years, Luke allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he deserved something this good. Tuesday morning started like any other day, but Amara couldn't stop thinking about Monday night on the rooftop. The kiss had been everything she'd hoped for and more. Gentle, honest, real. It made her want things she hadn't let herself want in years. But as she sat in her office going through emails, a nagging worry crept into her thoughts. She was the CEO of a company with 200 employees. Luke worked for the building management company that serviced their offices. What would people think if they found out about the relationship? Amara shook her head. She was getting ahead of herself. They'd had one date and one kiss. It wasn't like they were planning a wedding. Still, the thought stayed with her through her morning meetings. Around 10:30, Amara's assistant Maya Chen knocked on her office door. "Come in," Amara called. Maya was 30, years old, efficient, and one of the few people Amara trusted completely. She'd been working at Holt & Bright for 3 years, and in that time she'd become more like a friend than an employee. "How are you feeling?" Maya asked, settling into the chair across from Amara's desk. "You look different today. Happier." Amara felt her face get warm. "Do I?" "Definitely. Something good happened." Maya's eyes lit up with curiosity. "Please tell me you finally did something fun this weekend instead of working." Amara hesitated. She wanted to tell Maya about Luke, but she also knew how quickly news traveled in an office building, even good news. "I had dinner with someone Friday night," she said carefully. "A date?" Maya's voice rose with excitement. "Yes, a date." "Amara, that's wonderful. Who is he? Where did you meet him? What does he do?" The questions came fast, and Amara felt herself getting overwhelmed. "It's still new, Maya. I don't want to jinx it by talking about it too much." Maya studied her face. "But you like him." "I do. I really do." "Then I'm happy for you." Maya's expression turned serious. "You deserve someone who sees how amazing you are. Someone who makes you smile like this." Amara felt a warm rush of gratitude for her assistant. Maya had seen her through 3 years of long days, difficult decisions, and the loneliness that came with being in charge. If anyone understood what this meant, it was her. "Thank you," Amara said, "for everything. I know I'm not always the easiest boss to work for." "You're the best boss I've ever had," Maya said firmly, "and you're going to be an amazing girlfriend too." After Maya left, Amara tried to focus on work, but her mind kept drifting to Luke, to the way he'd looked at her in the moonlight, to the plans they'd made to see each other again tonight. She was still thinking about him when her phone buzzed with a text. "Looking forward to seeing you tonight. Hope your day is going well." Amara smiled and typed back, "My day just got better. See you at 9. Can't wait." The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls, but underneath her professional focus, Amara felt a current of excitement running through her. Tonight, she would see Luke again. Tonight, they could pick up where they left off on the rooftop. At 8:30 that evening, Amara was putting the finishing touches on a presentation when she heard voices in the hallway outside her office. She looked up to see Carla Webb, one of the junior analysts, talking to another employee by the elevator bank. Carla was 24, ambitious, and sometimes careless with information. She had a habit of repeating things she overheard without thinking about the consequences. Amara couldn't make out what they were saying, but something about their body language made her curious. They were leaning in close, talking in low voices, the kind of conversation that usually meant gossip. A few minutes later, Amara's phone rang. It was her mother. "Hi, Mom," Amara answered, closing her laptop. "Hi, sweetheart. How was your day?" "Good. Busy." Amara leaned back in her chair. "What's going on?" "I've been thinking about our conversation the other night," Regina Holt said. "About what David's mother said to you." Amara's stomach tightened. She'd almost forgotten about that painful phone call from Monday, about how Luke had overheard her repeating those cruel words. What about it? I think I owe you an apology, Regina continued. I never should have dismissed your feelings about what she said. Those words hurt you deeply, and I acted like you should just get over it. Amara was quiet for a moment. Her mother rarely apologized for anything. Thank you for saying that, Mom. I also want you to know that I never agreed with what she said. Never. The color of someone's skin has nothing to do with whether they'd be a good partner or parent. I know that, Amara said, but hearing it still stung. Of course it did. It was meant to. Regina's voice was firm. That woman wanted to hurt you because she was threatened by you, by how smart and successful you are. Amara felt tears prick her eyes. Sometimes I wonder if she was right, though. Maybe it would be easier to— Don't you dare finish that sentence, Regina interrupted. Easier isn't always better, baby, and you've never been someone who chose the easy path. I know, you're right. Are you seeing someone? Regina asked suddenly. You sound different, hopeful. Amara smiled. Maybe, it's still very new. Well, whoever he is, I hope he knows how lucky he is. After they hung up, Amara sat in her quiet office thinking about her mother's words, about the conversation Luke had overheard, about how much had changed since that awful Monday night. She was still lost in thought when she heard a soft knock on her office doorframe. Hey, Luke said, peeking around the corner. Are you ready to call it a day? Amara looked up and felt her heart do a little skip. He was wearing his work clothes, dark jeans and a polo shirt with the building maintenance logo, but to her, he looked perfect. More than ready, she said, shutting down her computer. How was your day? Long, but better now. Luke stepped into her office, looking around at the neat stacks of papers and the framed photos on her desk. This is nice, very organized. I have to be organized. If I'm not, everything falls apart. Amara gathered her purse and jacket. Are you hungry? I was thinking we could grab a late dinner somewhere. I'd like that. But I need to check on Evan first. Mrs. Rodriguez is watching him, but I like to make sure he's okay before he goes to bed. Of course. We could order pizza and eat at your place if that's easier. Luke hesitated. Are you sure? It's not fancy. And Evan might still be awake. Luke, Amara touched his arm. I'd love to meet him, if you think he's ready for that. Luke's, face softened. He's been asking about the friend from work I've been texting. I think he's curious. Then let's go meet him. They took the elevator down to the parking garage together. Amara followed Luke's older sedan to his apartment building, a modest complex about 15 minutes from downtown. The building was clean and well-maintained, with small gardens planted around the entrance. Luke's apartment was on the second floor. As he unlocked the door, Amara could hear the sound of a television and a woman's voice talking softly in Spanish. Luke, Mrs. Rodriguez called as they walked in. It's me, Mrs. Rodriguez, and I brought a friend. Mrs. Rodriguez appeared from the living room, a small woman in her 60s with kind eyes and graying hair. She looked at Amara with obvious curiosity. This is Amara, Luke said. Amara, this is Mrs. Rodriguez. She lives next door and helps me out with Evan sometimes. It's nice to meet you, Amara said, extending her hand. You too, mija. Mrs. Rodriguez shook her hand, then looked back at Luke. Evan finished his homework and had his bath. He's been reading in his room. Thank you. You're a lifesaver. After Mrs. Rodriguez left, Luke led Amara down a short hallway to a small bedroom. The door was decorated with paper airplanes and a sign that read, Evan's room, in careful 6-year-old handwriting. Luke knocked softly. Hey, buddy, can I come in? Uncle Luke, a small voice called from inside. Luke opened the door to reveal a cozy bedroom with twin beds, a bookshelf full of picture books and model airplanes hanging from the ceiling. Evan was sitting up in bed wearing pajamas covered in rockets, a library book in his lap. He was smaller than Amara had expected, with Luke's dark hair and serious brown eyes. When he saw her, he went shy, ducking his head behind his book. Evan, I want you to meet my friend Amara, Luke said gently. She works in the building where I clean offices. Amara knelt down next to the bed so she was at Evan's eye level. Hi, Evan. Luke tells me you're really interested in airplanes. Evan peeked over his book and nodded. What's your favorite kind? Amara asked. Fighter jets, Evan said quietly. They can go really fast. How fast? Some can go faster than sound, Evan said, warming up to the topic. That's called supersonic. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Amara looked at the model planes hanging above them. Did you and Luke build these together? Some of them. Uncle Luke bought me a kit for my birthday. He sounds like a pretty good uncle. Evan nodded solemnly. He takes care of me, and he makes good pancakes on Saturday mornings. Amara felt her heart squeeze. That sounds perfect. They talked for a few more minutes about airplanes and school and Evan's favorite books. As they chatted, Amara could see the boy relaxing, becoming more animated as he described the paper airplane contest his class was having next week. I'm going to make one that can fly across the whole classroom, Evan said proudly. I bet you will, Amara said. Can you show me how to make one sometime? Evan looked at Luke, who nodded encouragingly. Okay, I know how to make 5 different kinds. 5? That's very impressive. Luke tucked Evan in for the night, and they left him with his book and a small nightlight shaped like an airplane. In the hallway, Luke looked at Amara with something like awe. He likes you, he said softly. He's wonderful, Luke. Really. You should be so proud. I am. He's the best thing in my life. Amara felt something warm settle in her chest. Watching Luke with Evan had shown her a side of him she'd only glimpsed before. The way he was patient and gentle, the way he listened to everything the boy said, like it was the most important thing in the world. They ordered pizza and ate it in Luke's small kitchen while he told her stories about Evan's first few months living with him, about the nightmares and the tears and the slow process of building trust. He was so scared at first, Luke said, twirling cheese around his fork. He thought everyone he loved was going to leave him. It took months to convince him that I wasn't going anywhere. That must have been heartbreaking. It was, but also amazing in a way. Watching him start to feel safe again, watching him laugh for the first time after Maria died. Luke's voice was soft. I never thought I wanted kids, but now I can't imagine my life without him. You're a natural at it, Amara said. Anyone can see how much he loves you. He's easy to love. Luke looked at her across the small table. I hope you know that introducing you to him is a big deal for me. I don't bring people around him unless I'm serious about them. Amara felt her pulse quicken. Are you serious about me? Yeah, Luke said simply. I am. Good, Amara said, reaching across the table to take his hand. Because I'm serious about you too. They finished dinner and moved to the small living room to watch a movie. Luke put on an old romantic comedy, and they curled up together on his couch. It was nothing like Amara's sleek downtown condo with its modern furniture and city views, but it felt more like home than anywhere she'd been in years. Wednesday morning brought unexpected trouble. Amara was in an early meeting with her department heads when Maya slipped her a note. Can I see you privately when this is over? It's important. The meeting seemed to drag on forever. When it finally ended, Amara followed Maya to a quiet corner of the break room. What's going on? Amara asked. Maya looked nervous. I heard something this morning. Something that doesn't make any sense, but I thought you should know. Amara's stomach tightened. What kind of something? Carla Webb was talking to some people from accounting. She said she heard you say something about not wanting to have kids with white men. Maya's voice was careful. She made it sound like it was your personal belief, your policy or something. Amara felt the blood drain from her face. What exactly did she say? That you were on the phone Monday night and she overheard you say, I would never have kids with a white man. She's been telling people it shows your real feelings about diversity in the workplace. Amara sank into a nearby chair. This was her worst nightmare. The sentence that had caused so much pain between her and Luke was now spreading through her company like poison. Maya, that's not what happened. I was repeating something someone said to me, someone who was trying to hurt me. I figured it was something like that. You're not the kind of person who would think that way. Maya sat down next to her. But Carla doesn't know the context, and she's been talking about it like it's fact. How many people have heard this? I'm not sure. But you know how these things spread. Amara put her head in her hands. In a few short days, a private moment of pain had turned into a reputation-threatening rumor. If this reached the board of directors, or worse, if it became public, It could destroy everything she'd worked for. "What should I do?" she asked. "Tell the truth," Maya said simply. "Send an email to the staff. Explain what really happened. Most people will believe you." "And the ones who don't?" "We'll deal with that when it happens." Maya's voice was firm. "But you can't let a misunderstanding ruin your career or make you feel ashamed of something you didn't even say." Amara nodded, trying to think clearly. Maya was right. The truth was her best defense, but she also knew that once a rumor like this started, it was almost impossible to completely stop. "There's something else you should know," Maya said gently. "The building maintenance supervisor, Gus Alvarez, came by this morning. He said one of his employees had heard the rumor and was pretty upset about it." Amara's heart sank. Luke. If the rumor had reached the building staff, Luke would know about it soon. Would he believe that she was just repeating someone else's words? Or would he start to doubt everything between them? "I need to talk to him," Amara said, standing up quickly. "Who?" "The maintenance employee. I need to explain what really happened." Maya nodded. "Do you want me to draft something for the staff email?" "Yes. Keep it simple. Just the facts." Amara was already moving toward the door. "And Maya, thank you for watching out for me. Always." Amara spent the rest of the morning trying to focus on work while her mind raced with worry. She kept checking her phone, hoping for a text from Luke. But there was nothing. By lunchtime, she couldn't stand the uncertainty anymore. She took the elevator down to the basement level where the building maintenance office was located. Gus Alvarez was sitting at his desk when she knocked on the open door. "Ms. Holt," he said, looking surprised. "What can I do for you?" "I understand there's been some kind of misunderstanding," Amara said, closing the door behind her. "About something I supposedly said." Gus's expression grew serious. "Ah, yes, I heard about that. What you heard isn't true. Not in the way it's being presented." Amara sat down across from his desk. "I was repeating something someone else said to me. Someone who was trying to hurt me. It wasn't my opinion or my belief." Gus studied her face. "I figured it was something like that. You've always been fair with everyone who works in this building. But Luke, how is he?" Amara asked quickly. Confused, hurt, he asked for extra shifts this week, said he needed to stay busy. Amara felt her heart break a little. Luke was pulling away again, just like he had that first night, building walls to protect himself from more pain. "Can you tell him I'd like to talk to him tonight, if possible?" "I can tell him," Gus said. "But Ms. Holt? Luke's a good man. He's been through a lot with his nephew and all. If this is just a workplace friendship, that's fine. But if it's something more, you need to be real careful with his heart." "It's something more," Amara said quietly. "Much more." Gus nodded. "Then you better figure out how to fix this, because right now, he's thinking maybe he was wrong about you." Amara left the building maintenance office feeling worse than she had all day. The rumor wasn't just threatening her career anymore. It was threatening the best thing that had happened to her in years. That evening, Amara stayed late in her office, working on the email she would send to the staff. Maya had drafted something professional and direct, but Amara wanted to make sure every word was right. She was still writing when she heard a soft knock on her doorframe. "Amara." She looked up to see Luke standing in her doorway. He was in his work clothes, but his face looked tired and guarded. "Luke." Amara stood up quickly. "I'm so glad you're here. I've been trying to figure out how to explain." "I heard about the rumor," Luke said, stepping into her office. "About what people are saying, you said. It's not true. Not the way they're telling it." Amara moved closer to him. "You know what really happened that night. You heard the whole conversation." Luke was quiet for a long moment. "I know what I heard. But now other people are saying you believe something different, that maybe you were showing your true feelings that night." "Luke, no." Amara felt panic rising in her chest. "You know me better than that. You know I don't think that way." "Do I? We've known each other for a week. Maybe I've been seeing what I wanted to see." The words hit Amara like a physical blow. "Is that what you really think?" Luke looked around her office, at the expensive furniture and the awards on the walls. "I think maybe we're from different worlds. Maybe this was bound to happen eventually." "That's not true, and you know it." Amara's voice was fierce. "Yeah, what we have isn't about money or position or any of that. It's about us, about who we are when all the other stuff gets stripped away." "But it doesn't get stripped away, does it?" Luke's voice was tired. You're the CEO. I'm the janitor. People are always going to have opinions about that. I don't care what other people think. Well, I do, because I have Evan to think about. If this turns into some kind of scandal, if people start talking about us, it could affect him, his school, his friends. I can't let that happen. Amara felt tears threatening. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe we should slow down, take a step back, figure out if this is really worth all the complications. Luke, please don't do this. Don't let other people's words destroy what we have. But she could see in his eyes that he'd already decided. He was protecting himself, and Evan, the only way he knew how, by pulling away before anyone else could hurt them. I should get back to work, Luke said softly. Take care of yourself, Amara. He turned and walked away, leaving Amara standing alone in her office with tears running down her face. For the second time in her life, someone else's cruel words were taking away something she cared about. But this time, she wasn't going to let it happen without a fight. The next morning, Amara sent her email to the entire staff. It was clear, honest, and direct. Dear team, it has come to my attention that there's been some confusion about a private conversation I had earlier this week. I want to address this directly. On Monday evening, I was speaking with my mother about a hurtful comment that had been made to me in the past. During that conversation, I repeated the offensive words that someone else had said, not as my own belief, but as an example of the kind of prejudice I had experienced. I deeply regret that this private moment was misunderstood and has caused confusion. To be absolutely clear, I do not hold the views that were attributed to me. I believe strongly in equality, respect, and dignity for all people, regardless of race or any other characteristic. I value each member of our team and am committed to maintaining a workplace where everyone feels respected and valued. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. Best regards, Amara Holt. The response was immediate and mostly positive. Several colleagues emailed to express their support. A few people stopped by her office to say they'd never doubted her character. But Amara knew the real damage wasn't to her professional reputation, it was to her relationship with Luke. That afternoon, she tried texting him. I sent an email to the staff explaining what really happened. I hope you saw it. He didn't respond. She tried again that evening. Can we please talk? I miss you. Still nothing. By Friday, Amara was desperate. She asked Gus to give Luke a message, but he came back saying Luke wasn't ready to talk yet. Give him time, Gus advised. He's scared. When you've been hurt as much as he has, it's easier to run than to risk it again. But Amara didn't want to give him time. She wanted to fight for what they had. She wanted to prove to him that their connection was stronger than other people's misunderstandings. On Friday evening, she found herself standing outside Luke's apartment building, holding a kite she'd bought for Evan. She knew it was a risk. Luke might be angry that she'd come to his home. But she had to try. Mrs. Rodriguez answered the door when Amara knocked. You must be Luke's friend, the older woman said with a knowing smile. I'm Mrs. Rodriguez. I'm Amara. Is Luke here? Mrs. Rodriguez's expression grew sympathetic. He's at work, mija, but Evan is here. He's been asking about you. Would it be okay if I waited for a few minutes? I brought something for Evan. Of course. Come in. Evan was in the living room, working on homework at the coffee table. When he saw Amara, his face lit up. Amara, Uncle Luke said you were busy with work. I was, but I brought you something. Amara held up the kite. For your paper airplane contest, I thought you might want to test some designs with this first. Really? For me? Evan's eyes went wide. Really? Do you want to try it out this weekend? Evan looked at Mrs. Rodriguez, who nodded. Uncle Luke takes me to the park on Saturday mornings. Maybe I could meet you there, Amara suggested carefully, if your uncle says it's okay. I'll ask him, Evan said excitedly. Mrs. Rodriguez walked Amara to the door. Luke's a good man, but he's scared, she said quietly. He's been hurt before, by that other girl and by people who judge him for his situation with Evan. I would never judge him for that. Taking care of Evan makes him more amazing, not less. I believe you, but you're going to have to prove it to him. Mrs. Rodriguez patted Amara's arm. Don't give up on him, mija. He needs someone like you in his life. As Amara drove home, She thought about Mrs. Rodriguez's words. Luke was scared. She understood that. But she was scared too, scared of letting other people's words dictate her happiness again, scared of losing the first real love she'd ever felt. Saturday morning, she would go to the park. She would fly a kite with Evan and hopefully convince Luke that what they had was worth fighting for. Because she wasn't giving up. Not this time. Saturday morning came with gray clouds and a cool breeze. Amara sat in her car outside the neighborhood park, watching Luke push Evan on the swings. Her heart ached seeing them together, knowing she might never be part of their little family. She'd been sitting there for 10 minutes, working up the courage to get out of the car. Luke hadn't seen her yet. She could still drive away and pretend she'd never come. But then Evan spotted her through the car window. "Amara," he called, waving excitedly. "You came." Luke's head snapped around. When he saw her car, his expression went carefully blank. But it was too late to leave now. Evan was already running toward her. Amara got out of the car, carrying the kite she'd bought him. "Hi, Evan. I brought that kite I promised you. Can we fly it now? Please?" Amara looked over at Luke, who was walking slowly toward them. His face was unreadable, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. "That depends on your uncle," she said carefully. Luke stopped a few feet away from them. "Evan, why don't you go play on the slide for a minute? I need to talk to Amara." "But the kite? 5 minutes, buddy, then we'll see about the kite." Evan sighed dramatically, but ran back toward the playground. Luke and Amara were left standing alone near the parking area. "You shouldn't have come here," Luke said quietly. "I know, but you wouldn't answer my texts, and I needed to see you." "Amara, we talked about this. It's too complicated." "No, we didn't talk about it. You made a decision without me." Amara stepped closer to him. "Luke, I sent an email to everyone at the company. I explained what really happened. Most people understood." "I saw the email." "Then you know I was telling the truth. You know the rumor was based on a misunderstanding." Luke was quiet for a moment, watching Evan climb the jungle gym. "It's not just about the rumor, Amara. It's about what happens next time. What happens when people start talking about us, about our relationship. I can't protect Evan from that." "You don't have to protect him from me," Amara said firmly. "I care about him. I care about both of you." "For how long?" Luke's voice was tired. "Until it gets hard? Until people start judging you for dating the building janitor?" Amara felt anger flare in her chest. "Is that what you really think of me? That I'm that shallow?" "I think you're human. I think when push comes to shove, you'll choose the easier path." "Like Jenna did." Luke flinched. "This isn't about her." "Yes, it is. She hurt you, so now you think every woman will hurt you the same way." Amara's voice was passionate. "But I'm not her, Luke. I'm not going to run away when things get difficult." "How do I know that?" "Because I'm here." Amara threw her hands up in frustration. "Because I drove across town on a Saturday morning to stand in a park and fight for something I believe in. Because I bought a kite for a 6-year-old boy who isn't even mine, just to have an excuse to see you again." Luke looked at her for a long moment. She could see something shifting in his expression, like he was fighting an internal battle. "Amara." "Uncle Luke," Evan's voice interrupted them. "Can we please fly the kite now? The wind is perfect." Luke looked at his nephew, then back at Amara. 5 minutes, he said finally. "Then we're going home." Amara's heart sank, but she nodded. 5 minutes was better than nothing. They walked over to an open area of the park, where there was room to run with the kite. Amara showed Evan how to hold the string while she got the kite airborne. Within minutes, the bright blue kite was dancing in the wind above their heads. "I'm flying it!" Evan laughed, his face shining with joy. "Look, Uncle Luke, I'm really flying it." "I see, buddy, that's amazing." Amara watched Luke watch Evan, and her heart nearly broke at the love in his expression. This man would do anything for his nephew, including giving up his own happiness if he thought it would keep the boy safe. "Amara, can you show me how to make it go higher?" Evan asked. "Sure. Pull the string like this when the wind catches it." She moved behind him, helping him guide the kite. As they worked together, Amara became aware of Luke standing close beside them. She could smell his familiar scent, feel the warmth of his body next to hers. For a moment, it felt like the old closeness was still there. "He's never flown a real kite before," Luke said softly. "Really? We've always just done the paper airplanes." Luke's voice was warm as he watched Evan. This is special for him. It's special for me too. They stood there in comfortable silence, watching Evan run back and forth with the kite. The boy was laughing and shouting with pure joy, completely absorbed in the simple pleasure of making something fly. Luke, Amara said quietly, I want to tell you something about why I'm here. Amara, please, just listen. She turned to face him. When I was 27, I fell in love with someone, David. We dated for 2 years. I thought he might be the one. Luke was quiet, but she could see he was listening. His family never liked me. They were polite to my face, but I could tell they thought I wasn't good enough, too ambitious, too strong-willed, too black. The word came out with old pain attached to it. But David said he didn't care what they thought. What happened? His mother had a dinner party. She invited both families, said she wanted to get to know me better. During dessert, she started talking about grandchildren, about how important it was to preserve family traditions. Amara's voice got quiet. Then she looked right at me and said, I would never have kids with a white man, like she was daring me to disagree with her. Luke's expression had gone very still. David didn't say anything. He just sat there and let her humiliate me. After dinner, I asked him to defend me, to tell his mother she was wrong. He said I was being too sensitive, that I should try to understand her point of view. Jesus, Amara. I broke up with him that night, but her words stayed with me. For 2 years I've been carrying them around like a scar. And the worst part is, I started to wonder if maybe she was right. Maybe it would be easier to date someone who looked like me. Luke was watching her face intently now. When you overheard me on the phone, I was telling my mother about that dinner. About how those words still haunted me. I wasn't agreeing with them. I was trying to understand why they still had power over me. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know that I understand what it feels like to be judged for who you love. To have people make assumptions about your worth based on stupid, shallow things. Amara's voice was fierce. And I want you to know that I'm done letting other people's small-mindedness make my decisions for me. Luke was quiet for a long moment. On the other side of the park, Evan was still running with the kite, completely absorbed in his play. I'm scared, Amara, Luke said finally. Of what? Of letting you into our life and then losing you. Evan's already been through too much loss. I can't risk his heart again. Then don't, Amara said simply. Don't risk it. Protect it. By choosing someone who will stay, someone who will fight for this family instead of running away from it. How do I know you're that person? Amara looked over at Evan, who was now trying to teach the kite to do tricks. Because I'm already in love with him too. Luke's breath caught. What? I love that he's shy but brave. I love that he knows 5 different ways to make paper airplanes. I love that he calls you Uncle Luke in this serious little voice like you're the most important person in the world. Amara's voice was soft. And I love that you love him enough to sacrifice your own happiness to keep him safe. Luke was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. But here's the thing, Amara continued. He doesn't need you to sacrifice your happiness. He needs you to be happy. He needs to see that it's possible to love someone and trust them completely, that not everyone leaves. Amara. I'm not going anywhere, Luke, not because of rumors or gossip or people who don't understand us. Not because your job is different from mine or because our skin colors don't match. I'm here because you and Evan feel like home to me. Luke was quiet for so long that Amara started to worry she'd said too much, but then she saw tears gathering in his eyes. I love you too, he said quietly. I've been trying not to, but I do. Relief flooded through Amara's chest. Really? Really. I love how fierce you get when you're protecting something you care about. I love how you knelt down to Evan's level the first time you met him. I love that you bought a kite just to have an excuse to see me again. They were standing close now, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. I love how you take care of everyone around you, Luke continued, and I love that you make me want to be brave enough to let someone take care of me too. Luke, he reached up and touched her face, his thumb brushing across her cheek. I'm sorry I pulled away. I'm sorry I let my fear almost ruin this. You don't have to apologize. I understand why you were scared. But I don't want to be scared anymore. Want to choose love instead." Before Amara could respond, Luke leaned down and kissed her. It was soft and sweet and full of promise. All around them, the park faded away until there was nothing but the two of them and the choice they were making together. When they broke apart, they heard clapping. "Uncle Luke!" Evan was running toward them, the kite trailing behind him. "You kissed Amara. Does that mean she can stay?" Luke looked at Amara, his eyes bright with hope and happiness. "I don't know. Amara, can you stay?" "Forever," she said, and meant it. Evan whooped with joy and launched himself into a group hug that included all three of them and the kite. 3 months later, Amara was in her kitchen making Sunday dinner when her phone rang. It was her mother. "Hi, Mom," Amara said, stirring the pot of chicken and dumplings. "Hi, sweetheart. How are the cooking lessons going?" Amara looked over at the kitchen table, where Luke was helping Evan with homework while simultaneously monitoring a batch of cornbread in the oven. Their apartment had become too small for 3 people, so they'd moved into Amara's condo. It had taken some adjusting. Luke worried about Evan breaking expensive things, and Evan had been overwhelmed by having his own bathroom. But now it felt like they'd always been a family. "Really well," Amara said. "Luke's a fast learner, and Evan is an excellent taste tester." "I'm so glad. And how are things at work?" "Good. The rumor situation died down after a few weeks. Most people have moved on to other gossip." "And Luke? How's he adjusting to the new job?" Luke had accepted the promotion to building maintenance supervisor that Gus had been pushing for months. It came with a raise, better hours, and health benefits that covered Evan. More importantly, it meant he worked days instead of nights, which gave them more time together as a family. "He's amazing at it," Amara said. "He's actually implementing some of the repair tracking systems I suggested. The building owners are really impressed. I'm so proud of you both. You found a way to make it work. We found a way to make each other better." After they hung up, Amara went back to stirring the pot. Through the kitchen window, she could see the park where she and Luke had flown the kite with Evan, where she'd fought for their love and won. "Amara?" Evan's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Can you help me with this math problem?" "Of course." She went over to the table and sat down next to him. "What are you working on?" "Addition. But these numbers are really big." Amara looked at the worksheet. "Okay, let's break it down into smaller pieces." As she helped Evan work through the problem, Luke finished checking the cornbread and came to sit with them. He put his hand on the back of her neck, a casual gesture of affection that made her heart flutter even after all these months. "How much longer until dinner?" he asked. 20 minutes, just enough. Time to finish homework." "Perfect. Evan, after dinner, do you want to work on that model airplane we started?" "Yes, and Amara said she'd help with the decals." "I did promise that," Amara agreed. "I'm getting pretty good at the airplane building." "You're getting good at a lot of things," Luke said, leaning over to kiss her temple. As they sat around the table together, helping with homework, planning the evening, talking about their days, Amara marveled at how natural it all felt, how easy it was to love both of these people who had become her whole world. 6 months ago, she'd been working 60-hour weeks and eating dinner alone most nights. Now she was part of something bigger than herself, something worth fighting for. "Amara," Evan's voice was serious, "are you going to marry Uncle Luke?" Amara felt her face get warm. She and Luke had talked about the future in careful, hypothetical terms, but they'd never discussed marriage directly. "Why do you ask, buddy?" Luke said, but Amara could see he was curious about her answer too. "Because Mrs. Rodriguez says when people love each other as much as you do, they usually get married. And I think it would be nice if we were all officially family." Amara looked at Luke across the table. His eyes were soft and hopeful, and she could see her own feelings reflected there. "I think," she said carefully, "that sounds like something Uncle Luke and I should talk about. But I can tell you that I love both of you very much, and I want us to be a family forever." "Good," Evan said, as if that settled everything. "Can I be the ring bearer at the wedding?" Luke laughed. "Let's finish your math homework first, and then we'll worry about weddings." But as Evan bent over his worksheet again, Luke caught Amara's eye and mouthed, "We should talk." She nodded, her heart racing with possibility. Later that evening, after Evan was asleep and the dishes were done, Luke and Amara sat on the balcony of her condo, looking out over the city lights. the same city where they'd first met, first fought, first kissed, first chose each other. "So," Luke said, taking her hand. "Marriage." "Marriage," Amara agreed. "That's a big word." "It is, but not as scary as it used to be." "What changed?" Luke was quiet for a moment, thinking. "You did. This did." He gestured between them. 6 months ago, I thought love was too risky, too likely to end in pain. But being with you has taught me that the risk is worth it when you find the right person." "And am I? The right person?" "You're everything I didn't know I was looking for," Luke said simply. "You're strong enough to challenge me and gentle enough to comfort Evan when he has nightmares. You're ambitious enough to run a company and patient enough to help with homework. You're brave enough to fight for us when things get difficult." Amara felt tears prick her eyes. "Luke, I don't have a ring yet," he said, sliding off the couch to kneel in front of her. "And this isn't a proper proposal, but I want you to know that I want to marry you. I want to adopt Evan together. I want to build a life with you that's big enough to hold all of our dreams." "Yes," Amara said, not caring about rings or proper proposals. "Yes to all of it." Luke stood up and pulled her into his arms, spinning her around the small balcony while she laughed. When he set her down, they were both crying happy tears. "I love you," he said, resting his forehead against hers. "I love you too, both of you. Even when we leave toy airplanes all over your clean floors? Especially then." They stood there holding each other under the stars, the city spread out below them like a promise. Somewhere in the distance, a plane passed overhead, its lights blinking against the dark sky. "Evan's going to be so excited," Luke said. "He's going to want to plan the whole wedding." "Let him, he's got good taste," Amara laughed. "Remember when our biggest worry was what people would think about us dating? Seems silly now, doesn't it?" "It does. The only opinions that matter are ours, and Evan's." "Speaking of which," Luke said, "I should probably ask him officially if it's okay for me to marry you. He takes his role as man of the house very seriously." "I think he'll approve. But yes, ask him. Make him part of it." "I will. Tomorrow maybe, after I get the ring." "What kind of ring?" Luke grinned. "The kind that shows everyone you're taken, by a former janitor who loves you more than anything in the world." "Former janitor, current building supervisor, future husband," Amara corrected, "and the luckiest man alive." "I like the sound of that." They went inside and got ready for bed, brushing teeth side by side at the bathroom sink, checking on Evan one more time, settling into the comfortable rhythms of a life shared. As they lay in bed together, Amara thought about the journey that had brought them here, about the overheard words that had nearly driven them apart, and the choice to trust that had brought them back together. "Luke," she said in the darkness. I'm going to delete that old voicemail tomorrow, the one from my mother about David's mother. I don't need to carry those words around anymore." "What will you replace it with?" Amara smiled. "Maybe something about not living by borrowed words, about choosing love over fear." "That sounds perfect." "It does, doesn't it?" Luke pulled her closer and Amara settled against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new conversations, new reasons to choose each other every day. But tonight, they were exactly where they belonged. In the morning, she would record a new message for herself. "I choose love. I choose family. I choose the courage to be happy." But right now, surrounded by the quiet of their home and the warmth of Luke's arms, she already knew those words by heart. 1 year later, the wedding was small and perfect, held in the same park where Amara had fought for their love. Mrs. Patel catered the reception, and Evan was indeed the ring-bearer, taking his job so seriously that he practiced walking down the aisle for weeks beforehand. As they exchanged vows under a canopy of white flowers, with their small circle of family and friends gathered around them, Amara thought about all the words that had brought them to this moment. The cruel ones that had hurt, the honest ones that had healed, the brave ones that had changed everything. "Do you, Amara Holt, take Luke Dawson to be your husband?" "I do," she said, looking into the eyes of the man who had taught her that love was always worth fighting for. "Do you, Luke Dawson, take Amara Holt to be your wife?" "I do," he said, his voice strong and sure. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." As Luke kissed her, Amara heard Evan cheering loudly from the front row. When they broke apart, the boy ran up to hug both of them. "Now we're really family," he announced to everyone within hearing distance. "Yes, we are," Amara said, pulling him close, "forever and always." Later, as they danced under string lights in the park pavilion, Luke whispered in her ear, "No regrets?" "Only one," Amara said. "What's that?" "That I didn't fight for us sooner." "You fought exactly when you needed to," Luke said. "Right on time." As the song ended and their friends and family applauded, Amara looked around at the faces of the people who had supported their love story. Maya, who had helped her find the courage to tell the truth. Gus, who had pushed Luke to take risks. Mrs. Rodriguez, who had watched Evan so they could date. Mrs. Patel, who had fed them their first real meal together. All of them had played a part in bringing them to this moment. "What are you thinking about?" Luke asked. "About how many people it takes to make a love story happen. And about how worth it all was." "And about how worth it all was," Amara agreed. They danced until the stars came out, surrounded by love and laughter and the certainty that they had found something rare and precious, something worth every word spoken in its defense. When the evening finally ended and they were alone in their car driving home, Evan asleep in the back seat clutching his ring-bearer pillow, Amara reached over and took Luke's hand. "Ready to start our happily ever after?" she asked. "I thought we already had," Luke said, bringing her hand to his lips to kiss it. And as they drove through the quiet streets toward home, toward their life together, Amara realized he was right. Their happily ever after hadn't started with the wedding or the proposal or even the first kiss. It had started the moment they chose to trust each other despite their fears, the moment they decided that love was worth the risk, the moment they replaced borrowed words with honest ones and chose to write their own story together.